Hello and welcome to another episode of Page Burners. We're working our way through the Malazan books in publication order by authors Steven Erikson and Ian Esslemont. We are starting our discussion today of Night of Knives by Ian Esslemont, which is our first Esslemont book in this read-through. And I believe it's the first book in the novels of the Malazan Empire series that he has published. Esslemont's got like a few different ones, and this one's the first in the novels of the Malazan Empire series. We had announced last week that we'd get through half the book today, but we're actually only going to talk about the first two chapters and the prologue. We will be talking next week about the next two chapters, which is chapter 3 and 4, and then we'll finish the book in a third discussion after that. Once we finish this book, the next book for us will be Bone Hunters. We'll be back to the, what is that one called? Malazan Books of the Fallen. Sorry, I just woke up from a nap. I'm bulbing a little bit today, but that's fine. That's everything. With me, of course, we have the usual group of friends. We'll all introduce ourselves, talk about what we most want to discuss today. Mirka, do you want to kick us off?
Hi everyone. My name is Mirka. I'm rereading the series, and that applies to this book as well. Although it has been a while since I read it. One thing that I thought would be nice to discuss here today is not really related to the plot of this book, but it is mentioned, and it's the edict against sorcery that Surly enacted in the Malazan world, I guess in the city of Malaz, and I always kind of wondered about the reasons for that. So I thought it would be an interesting conversation. Steve, do you want to go next?
Sure. Steve from Page Chewing. And just a quick addition to what Varsha mentioned at the top is we do update on the forum. So if you were reading along with us and want to keep up to date, if we postpone a week or we change chapters, Shannon is he's now the poster of updates on the threads there. So, but anyway,
what should his title be? Fist?
We'll have to find a title for Shannon, a cool title.
Varsha is the adjunct. Yeah. It's got to be one of the cool titles.
Fist, yeah.
Fist feels appropriate.
It does feel appropriate. He guides us.
We learned about the existence of a new title in this season. Not that that's what I want to call Shannon. I like Fist, but Sub-Fist, that one's new, right? We haven't seen that in any of the books.
Clearly, I exist in the dredges of the internet, but I find it is a very unfortunate title.
It could be misunderstood if you don't have context, for sure.
For sure. You go around talking about someone's sub-fist, like this, you're going to get a whole different type of person.
Yeah. It should be something like a finger, or right? That's the next level down.
I don't know that that's any better. I mean, maybe slightly better.
But am I remembering this wrong? There is some fantasy series that has finger as a military group, like it's the equivalent of a squad or something.
Yeah, I forget what series it is.
It wasn't Baker's, was it?
No, not like Hand or something? No.
Hand, finger, fist. Wait. Was it the mirrored Michael Fletcher series, Steve?
Oh, it sounds familiar. I forget what exactly it was.
I swear I literally was just reading a book that had this, and it's driving me nuts that I can't remember it. It's not Tad Williams, I don't think. I don't know.
While you try to remember, my question this week is, as a person who is my first time reading it, I've gone farther in the main series than I have before. But the question for those of you rereading is, someone like me, why should someone like me read the Esslemont books? What would be the pitch for someone who is teetering on whether or not they should read them? I want to hear everyone's thoughts. So I'll kick it off to Carl. Maybe he remembered what book he's reading.
I do not remember, unfortunately, but I was looking around trying to see if I could find on my bookshelves what whatever book series it was. Did not. But yeah, I'm Carl. This is my second time through the series, including second time with Knight of Knives. I had gotten through Return of the Crimson Guard in the Esslemont books, and then I've also read the first of the Paths to Ascendancy. So I have some experience with Esslemont, but I am excited to go beyond that and kind of see how he develops as a writer. My topic for this week, I'm going to go to kind of a very sort of writerly subject, which is just Esslemont's prose and the way he creates atmosphere. I love this book. I really do. I loved it from the first time I read it. And a big part of that is because of the feeling it gives me. Not many books to me are as gothic and atmospheric as this. I mean, it's certainly modern books. And it almost, to me, I mean, I should maybe hold back on saying more, but it almost to me kind of evokes the feeling of like playing Elden Ring or something like that. Like it kind of gives me that like mysterious gothic fantasy, creepy and magical and slightly whimsical. Anyway, I will hand things off to our Fist Shannon. I'm going to make it happen. I'm making it happen.
All right. So, this is my second time through this book. And for discussion, I think I probably want to talk about Kiska, because I remember the first time through this book, I could not stand her. And that's part of why I didn't like this book very much the first time through. And this time, I think I maybe understand her a little bit better, and I'm getting a little bit more out of her sections. Like I'm not just reading her section going, let's get back to temper. What are we doing? So I'll hand it off to Dan.
Dan, and I don't know. I don't really have a question, mostly because I was slightly confused by some aspects of this 2 chapters we read. So I think my question is I'm just going to ask people to explain what we read. Because, yeah.
Do we want to start talking about Steve's question about why to read these books? I feel like that's maybe a good introduction here. I don't know if someone else wants to take it away, take the lead. I definitely have thoughts.
This is my first time through Esslemont's book. Someone who's rereading should probably take it.
All right, I'm just going to jump in then.
I also have thoughts, but you can go ahead.
I think, speaking about Knight of Knives specifically, I don't know if I would read it in the middle of the series like we are on your first time through. I think that has the risk of potentially being really disruptive to the flow. Now, strangely, I think I actually did read it in the middle of the series when I read it the first time. But I almost feel like it could be a good introduction to the world of whatever they call this world. I don't know, the Malazan world. Because it's more kind of bite-sized. Like it's a shorter book. Very few of these books are not gigantic tomes. It's like, what is it, like 300 pages? Mm-hmm. And, it's paced pretty well, I think. Like it definitely evokes a lot of the feelings and the ideas and explores some of the concepts that the other Malazan books do, including the Book of the Fallen. But I think despite it still being potentially confusing to a new reader, as evidenced by Dan, I think it actually is easier to follow than Gardens of the Moon, because it's a little more explanatory in terms of like how the Warrens work, for example. It's not like the cast of characters isn't as large. You just don't really have as much to keep track of. And I think, unlike Gardens of the Moon, a lot of the mystery a lot of the really like kind of confusing elements are intentionally mysterious and confusing. Like what's going on with Kiska and what all she experiences is meant to be confusing. Or Temper, for that matter. They don't know what's going on exactly. That's the point. Is like suddenly there's a lot of moving pieces going on around them. And so if you're lost, that's okay because they're lost also. Kiska especially. She's like literally a teenager in over her head, right? And beyond that, I just think it's like a really solid and unique novel. Like I mentioned, I think it is really a work of gothic fantasy that you don't see that often in modern fantasy. I guess romantasy has been dipping into gothic vibes, but the ones I've tried have not really. The prose just hasn't been there, and the prose is really strong here. I'll now hand it back to Mirka.
And I have some thoughts after you, Mirka.
Cool. Yeah. So I think the main reason for me would be that if you are reading the Malazan books and you fall in love with this world, you want to know more, right? And then that's just it. Like these books give you more. They give you maybe not necessarily answers, but they give you context. They give you some, like prequel vibes. You get to know the characters a little bit better. And I don't know if the version of the book that you guys have has the introduction from Steven Erikson in it. But yeah, I think that's really beautifully written, and I think that kind of also gives you that reason. He says there that Night of Knives is not a fan fiction. They are like both authors that are responsible for this world, and he says, this is a huge imaginary world, too big for a single writer to manage in a lifetime. But two writers, that's different. So, yeah, I just really like how, they share different pieces of the world. Of course, Erikson being the slightly more superior writer takes the bigger piece of it. And then Esslemont fills in those other spaces and his side stories. I think it's just really valuable to see the perspectives of both of these guys that played out the world and came up with it, and then they both put it into writing in a different way. It's like having all the pieces of the puzzle kind of at hand. So I think that would be the reason for me to read these books.
Just before Shannon gets to his reason, just want to mention the amount of trust he must have in Esslemont to hand over this massive, complex series and trust someone else with it is pretty wild. But sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
Well, they came up with it together, though, so they share it right from the beginning. But yeah, I really kind of wanted to build up what Mirka actually. They just said, yeah, I think this builds on the world a lot. And not just the world, but even the plots. I mean, to Malazan veterans, I mean, there's characters we've already seen just in this book that will pop up again in Steven Erikson books. And then there's stuff that, you guys don't know about. They're going to, there's stuff that just disappear out of the Malazan books and pop up in Esslemont books because they trade characters, they trade plots, and they actually do. They're more interconnected, I think, than most people give them credit for. So I think that it is definitely worthy. But the thing I really wanted to say was, yeah, I also don't really endorse reading this like we are. This is how I read it too. I read it with the ultimate readings thing where I just read all the books kind of interlaced together, and I was so burned out by the time I got to like the Crippled God. I wasn't really having a good time anymore, and but I was just powering through them. But I would say just probably read Book of the Fallen and then read the Esslemont books. I think there was a time I disagreed with that, but at this point I would say I think that probably is really the time to read these.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because reading this one, with the less characters involved in the story, and it felt a lot lighter. It felt easier to read. It kind of felt like it was a nice break from the massive amount of characters. But
Well, I think us going slow like we are, it is, and discussing stuff. I think this is fine. I think it's great. But I think if you're just trying to read through books, it really is a lot to try to read all of these because it's like 30 books all told.
To add to what has been said as well, I do think that sometimes people have a negative reaction initially to this book when they read it. They come into it wanting more of the Book of the Fallen, and this is not that. I think there are echoes of it. There are similarities. I think it very much feels like it exists in the same world. And obviously, as Shannon has said, it carries over some of the plot points. It just fundamentally is the same world, right? They created together, so you get to see different aspects of it, like Mirka said. And if you're a fan of the world, listen, fantasy fans love this sort of stuff, so I don't see why, if you like Malazan a lot, you wouldn't read it. But I do think expectations are important, because the same reason I think it's actually maybe a good entry point into the Malazan world. What Steve was saying is that it kind of is a bit of a lighter read, is I think exactly what rubs people the wrong way when they try it, because it's like it's just not as big, and it's not as epic, and it all takes place over one night. And if you listen to Erikson talk about it, that's one of the things he talks about being like really impressed by and really enjoying about this book, is how it is structured that way, where it's just about one night and the events that happen in that one night. And it is so structurally, and it's just different than the Book of the Fallen. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people to kind of reconcile. And so I do think it is important knowing that going in, if you're going in after the Book of the Fallen or after having read several of those books, that it is a different beast, and you need to take it as it is, not as some additional novel in the Book of the Fallen, because it's not that. Well, do we want to start?
It's worth also mentioning that it's only this one that is... Sorry, I might have a little bit of a delay, because I sometimes...
You're back.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say something to what Carl was saying, that it's only this one book that covers just a single day, right? The rest of the Esslemont books are normal in that, they span multiple, they span longer periods. But it doesn't change anything about the fact that they are, as Carl was saying, less epic, a little bit more straightforward, more of an easy read. And I think that's especially true for the Path to Ascendancy, but I guess we haven't... I think it's only Carl who read one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely feels much easier. That it's not a trilogy; it's 4 books. But yeah, very easy read compared to Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson.
I was wondering, are the books in this series connected, or are they all sort of standalone books?
Okay, the books in this series, Novels of the Malazan Empire.
Yeah,
there's 6 books, and some of the characters, some of the plots interweave between them, but really, each book is set on a different continent. That's the thing. This is Malaz Island. The next book will be up on Unta, and then you'll jump down to Stratum, and then Jenna Bacchus gets a book. Assail gets a book. So it kind of jumps around the world. Some are more connected than others. Some of them have almost nothing to do with other ones. But there are things that interweave between them. But mostly they're standalone.
Okay, so it's going to conclude it's going to get to some point where there will be some sort of conclusions, unlike the main Malazan books, where there isn't really... there's a minor conclusion in each of the books, but it's not really an actual conclusion.
Each book has its own conclusion.
Okay.
And, the last book is kind of a much... I think it is a more epic book. It is probably the biggest of the books, but...
Which one is
that's
that?
good. So you could...
Assail.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you don't have to read them all in a sequence. You can read one and then read something else and then read the second one, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I see. That makes perfect sense. Because I was thinking
Yeah.
when reading this, what you were saying about maybe it's not the right time to read this if you're reading the main series.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of thinking that I want to, I've done the detour away. I'm kind of relaxed. I'm kind of distracted a bit. Now I want to continue reading the main series, and it's been a bit too long. The gap, right? Like the previous stories, the Cobalt Brooch ones, it's short enough. I can read it. I'm done. It's a refresher. It's way more light than, not way more light. It's lighter than this, obviously, and then I'm good enough to get started again. But this is probably a bit too long in between.
I mean, yeah, the only worry there would be reading them too early. You could read some of these too early. Return of the Crimson Guard definitely happens after Bone Hunters. In fact, some of the stuff in Bone Hunters follows up in that book, and I love it for it. Orb Scepter Throne has to come after Toll the Hounds, because it's on Jedivacus, and it very clearly happens after that book. But beside that, I think the rest of the books can almost be read anywhere. This one is actually set before all the books we've read. This is almost concurrent with the prologue in Gardens of the Moon.
Really?
That was actually going to be one of the questions I have, because I didn't check the dates. They mention in, it's not the prologue, chapter 1, that one of the, Temper starts out in Mock's Hold, which is where Gardens of the Moon opens. That's where Ganos is. That's what the prologue is. That's where, and he mentions
they even mentioned that Weatherbane.
City, right? Exactly, Mock's Vein, right? And he mentions a district in Malaz burning, and I was wondering if that was the Mouse Quarter.
It is.
Yeah, has the Mouse Quarter burned multiple times?
Yeah,
in chapter 2, they make it clear Kiska survived that Mouse Quarter riot that was part of Tattersale's background that happened right immediately during the prologue. They said that happened last summer. So I think this book is supposed to be happening in the fall or something. So it's a couple months ago.
Oh,
okay,
interesting.
so this is after the prologue, and then this is Do we?
Yeah.
We know.
I don't think that makes sense though, because don't they mention Laseen in doesn't Whiskey Jack
they said she's well, they also mention in this book that Kellanved and Dancer have abandoned the throne. She's basically the regent at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think she just took on that name Laseen earlier in the summer, but not everybody would know it. That's Whiskey Jack, and they know it. So everybody else just thinks of her Surly still, because she's not officially the Empress yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we already went into the dead house?
No.
Kellanved and Dancer?
No. Well, no.
No, they definitely not.
That's what I thought. But I thought that happened before the prequel of the first book, but maybe I was wrong. I guess I was wrong.
I was also a little confused about the timeline, but that definitely hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I'm
that's
not
why
totally
I was
sure,
confused. One of the things.
I also was trying to figure out the timeline as I was reading this, and I'm also, and I haven't read Paths of Ascendancy. I don't know how this fits in with that either. But yeah, no, they're very clear that it's Kellanved and Dancer have abandoned the throne because they're off on their quest for godhood. And I think they mentioned it's been a couple years. But
okay.
And that's that's why Laseen does it. That's why she takes over.
Okay. I thought it was simultaneous when they left the throne and they ascended, but okay, I see.
So according to Google's quick Google search, chronologically it occurs immediately after the prologue of Gardens of the Moon and about 10 years before the main events of that novel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the poem
this is in 52, and the book is 50 or 62, 63 is Gardens of the Moon.
Gardens of the Moon opens with multiple poems, one of which is really distinct in my memory as being the Emperor is dead, blah, blah, blah. And it's all about how Kellanved and Dancer were assassinated by Laseen. And I guess I had always read that because I'm pretty sure it comes before the prologue. That is after? Because for some reason I thought we had two different
I think
poems
so.
before the prologue. Okay.
And
Never
if I'm not
mind.
mistaken, that was a Laseen poem, right?
Yeah.
It might be. Did we learn which Laseen wrote that one? Because I know the answer, but I'm not sure if we've been told. I think we have, because I think this is
I don't
how
remember.
Laseen's mom was named Laseen when was a poet.
Yeah.
So it had to be
Yeah,
her.
they mentioned that somewhere.
Yeah, they definitely mentioned her mom was a poet. Because I didn't remember that from the first read. That was recent news for me. I read the whole series the first time around thinking that it was our Laseen who was the poet, but it is not. It is her mom.
I thought in some of the other books there are some poems by Laseen the Younger, right?
That is also true. Yes.
I think she's quoted as Laseen the Young.
To be clear, there are three Lasins. There is Laseen's mom, who was the first Laseen. There's a Laseen we know as Laseen, who becomes Shaik. And then there's Laseen the Younger, who she names, it's the orphan child she names after herself.
Yeah. Sure.
Her mom and the orphan she names after herself are both poets. We have seen epigraphs from both of them. All right, sidebar there. Do we want to talk about the prologue of this then?
Can I ask another big question? Is this book set in Malaz City? It is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But then, okay, because I don't understand, because it says in other parts of the book, stuff like, oh, the Malazan Empire used to be strong, but now this city, who cares about this city? I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. If the Malazan Empire is ruling all these continents, why is the city a backwater?
They haven't, they didn't make it explicit, but Malaz City here was where the empire was born. They talk about that in what we read today.
Yeah.
And then the capital was moved up to Unta after they took over that continent.
Oh,
so
really?
Okay. So that's what that was a reference to. So so that's why this is kind of forgotten. It's because they've moved up and they made Unta their new capital, which that's where Laseen and all them were during that's where the capital is.
Other details to add context to that we learn here, which is this started out as a pirate town. It was like Port Royal in real history. And so it was just a den of thieves and criminals, right? And then Kellenbed and Dancer happened, and they established the empire, and they started it here. Not going to give really more details other than clearly, that's what we learn here. And then eventually the empire expanded and conquered so much that it was no longer strategically viable to have the capital in Malaz. So they move it to Unta. And so Malaz goes back to just being some shithole that it sucks. It's cold and rocky and not a lot grows there. And it has a creepy dead house and it's awesome.
Yeah, okay, I missed it. But isn't Laseen in Malaz City in the main Malazan, or is she in Unta?
No, she's in Unta.
Oh, okay. I just completely missed it. Fair enough.
So we open with a scene on a boat, which this scene really reminds me of, we're talking off camera about A Song of Ice and Fire, the prologue of that first book, Game of Thrones, because we get weird cold ice wraiths, although these are like ocean ice storm creatures, the storm riders they're called, that kill everyone aboard the ship just by freezing them all to death. How did you all feel about that? Thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice way to start the book out with and to get into the world again.
It's like a straight up horror scene.
Yeah.
I love that scene. I think it's a great way to open the book. It's so creepy.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
All yeah, it is. They're all dying. People are he turns around, the captain turns around and I think it's his nephew or something is frozen solid, and he was just talking to him, and now he's just dead. He's an icicle. And things are breaking because they're so cold. The sails are just like rock solid. I think there's just so much great imagery, and I just find that a really creepy, interesting scene. That while it doesn't immediately pay off, like in terms of like it doesn't immediately tie into the rest of the story. I mean, in a way, it's even more direct than actually the Game of Thrones prologue, because we know they're heading north towards Malaz. I mean, that's pretty explicit by the end of chapter 2 when they see the blue-green lights on the horizon, and there are like giant waves, and everything is really cold. It's like, what do we think's happening here? It's probably the thing in the prologue, right? And the question is why? What is drawing them to Malaz?
Yeah, what I liked about it was just the tragedy of it, because it's the Storm Riders weren't even attacking them; they were just close to them. They were being killed just because of the cold radiating off of them as they were heading towards Malaz, and so they were just in the wrong place. Like,
it really makes them feel.
That was
Yeah, they feel like a force of nature. I love it. I love the Storm Rider.
There's talk of a sacrifice, right? Like throwing someone to the water so that Storm Riders will leave them alone. But somehow I got the feeling that wouldn't have worked this time. But also, was there a person tied to the mast of the ship? And was that person?
No, he was stuck.
Wife?
He was stuck to it.
Oh,
he froze.
He's like the lookout.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's frozen.
Yeah, the lookout was frozen.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very. The prose is very lyrical and rich, and so you have to be careful. Like, you can't really just like breeze through it because you'll miss a lot of what's going on. But I love that. And I'll say this, not all of Esslemont's books are written in this voice, and I adore it. I actually wish he would write in it more often because I think it's fabulous. As I mentioned, I just love it. It just feels like a gothic horror novel where everything that, every sentence is so dense with detail and rich with color that if you really take the time to appreciate the quality of his prose, it really is phenomenal. All right, the next scene.
There are some people who criticize exactly this, actually. Those
people are
the
boring.
overriding of the sentences.
Okay.
No,
I was going to stay quiet, Carl, but I'm going to... I disagree with you. I like his later writing better. That's part of why I didn't like this book also, is I was very confused by it because it is so dense, like you said. And to be fair, like I said, I'm enjoying it a lot more the second time through. I'm picking up a lot more things that are going on. But when his writing, I don't know, I don't want to say basic, but his writing, I don't know, I just like his writing better later. And you can hate me for that. I don't care.
You know what? I'm just gonna resent you, and that's okay. No, that's fine. That's valid. I respect different opinions, but I love it. I mean, I love that kind of very dense, rich prose. I mean, you see it in like typically in like a lot of like older fiction. Again, like older Gothic fiction is like what comes to mind, like The Picture of Dorian Gray or Wuthering Heights, and I love it. But we get another scene immediately. We like Erikson. Yes. He gives us multiple prologues. This one called A Path Within Shadow, and we are introduced to a couple characters. Edgewalker, who is an undead dude walking around. Very old, ancient. We don't know how old exactly. And then, who is it? Jettle? Who is a dinosaur?
Or Delicaron, if you want to use the name his mama gave him.
Yeah,
I thought I was getting kind of crab vibes off of him.
I think he might be a demon. Because he said like to have ruled over the shadow demons in the shadow realm.
Well, he apparently, he apparently, he's from like the outer regions of the shadow realm. Yeah. Okay. But he also did set on the Shadow Throne at some point. So this guy was actually I don't know, the God of Shadow for at least a little while.
I love that detail that Kellanved and Cotillion or Kellanved, our Shadow Throne was not the first Shadow Throne. That there were others before him. I think it just makes the world feel so big and ancient and mysterious. I love the idea that you can have these shifting gods. It's very cool.
And now this guy's stuck in a rock, basically. What's it called? Oh, starts with an O. The exact word for it. I read it on e-reader, so I could just, highlight it and get a dictionary definition of it.
I think the other important thing that happens here, actually really maybe the most important thing, it's very mysterious, but there has been some sort of intrusion into the Shadow Realm, and the characters seem to think that someone else is coming for the throne. Gee, I wonder who that could be.
In chapter 2, we start to see because he's talking about a convergence. Convergence is coming, and it's like, and then it's funny, I didn't really remember what he was talking about. And then by the time we got to chapter 2, I was like, oh yeah, the shadow moon and hanging over Malaz City and stuff. This is the convergence where the realm of shadow is, I guess, crossing over with the real world of Malaz City.
Edgewalker's awesome.
But
period. End of sentence. I love Edgewalker. He's one of the big mysteries, I'll say, of the Malazan books. All of them. You will get more Edgewalker.
So you love him just based on this book, or based on everything you've read about
everything.
so far?
Everything he's in. I forget, was he wasn't in Midnight Tides, was he?
No, we haven't seen him in Book of the Fallen yet.
Okay. Well,
but he is in another Esslemont books, and he's in other Erikson books that have nothing to do with Book of the Fallen. He's around.
I'm a sucker for just a mysterious, ancient, not quite apathetic, but doesn't interfere. He just lives on the periphery. Like that type of character, I eat it up. I'm a Tom Bombadil fan, okay? and this is like cooler Tom Bombadil. This is like goth Tom Bombadil. It's awesome. You know what?
A little bit.
Why should you read this book? For goth Tom Bombadil.
For Shadow God Tom Bombadil.
A lot of people don't like
right, because who is this guy?
Literally, we have no idea.
Even just off this prologue, he seems to have some, this former God of Shadow is trapped, and he apparently has the power to release him if he wanted to. But he's ambling around just claiming to be a servant.
So the guy who was entrapped, what was his name, Jaleg? He was previously what Kellanved is now, like Shadow Throne is now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But do we know who captured him and trapped him there?
No, all they say is that the throne's been empty a very long time, and so we don't know. We don't know when. We don't. I mean, was he the? Well, we know he wasn't the first because he said he took it from somebody else. So
and it seems like it was plural, like people who took the throne from this person, because when Edgewalker is going to tell him, he's like, they were. I remember them. They were. Any theories? Who could that be? Like, who was who owned or held the throne of Shadow, and was plural?
I mean, Tistidor.
Yeah, I thought that too, but that would mean.
I don't think that timeline works.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that?
Well, okay. I guess this is a good time to open this up. So this Shadow Throne, is it?
It's not Elder Shadow.
Is it the Shadow Throne? Yeah, exactly. Or is it just is it just the throne over this like sliver of the shattered Tist Emerlon? Because that's what I get out of it. I think this is just a piece of Tist Emerlon or Swirled Emerlon.
It is.
And it's the throne of that.
It's confusing. But I think when you really dig into the details that we've learned, like our Shadow Throne, Kellanved, the character we have followed, and have whatever feelings about does not sit on the Elder Throne of Shadow. That's like pretty explicit in
It is.
the Book of the Fallen. And my reading of this is that this guy, the demon, the whatever he is, Jelig, is had occupied the same throne.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, some of this is hard to talk about without. Well, I mean, we know what happens, right? Like, this isn't a spoiler. Like, Kellenbed sits the Shadow Throne, and it's not the Elder Shadow Throne. So I think it's got it. Like, that's what we're reading about here.
So
I don't
while
know,
we're on the
maybe-
subject, sorry, go ahead.
So potentially, after the shattering, somebody was sitting on this lesser shadow throne, and then this guy came along and took it over, and then later on got, ousted himself. Could be the timeline.
It really like creates very interesting questions, which is like, when the Warrens were created, did they come fully baked with their own thrones, or were they like, did someone have to create these thrones? Did Karul create these thrones? Did they naturally occur after the Warrens were made? Were they forged by people or beings, ascendants over the millennia? I mean, we don't know. And as far as I know, we never get a strict answer there. But I think it's really interesting to think about.
I mean,
Yeah,
forgot
and also
flexibility of the Warrens, right? I don't know, Mirko. What are you saying?
I was just going to say that it is interesting that they can be unoccupied for a time, right? So usually when you have a throne, it kind of goes from one person to the next. And these ones, I mean, this one specifically, the Throne of Shadow that we talk about here, they say that it has been unoccupied for a long time. How does that happen?
It does make you wonder also, like, are there active factions trying to keep people from sitting the throne? Is like that why it's been unoccupied for so long? Is like, because you'd think at some point, like, one of the demons who lived there would like walk up and just like sit on it and be like, I'm in charge now, bitches. But that like seemingly doesn't happen. So it's like someone's stopping that from happening. Like, what's going on there?
Or do you
Yeah.
have to be worthy somehow? But how? Yeah.
Like the King Arthur myth, right?
But who tied this Jelig guy up? That's what I'd like to know. Maybe that will give us answers to all our questions.
That is a good question.
Do we know where the throne is? Like, in this case, is it in the Shadow Realm in this book? Because, right, we know in the next books it's not anymore, right?
No, I think it is in the Shadow Realm in the other
Okay.
books.
Is it?
Because what you're thinking of is the Elder Shadow Throne. So that's the thing, is like the throne of Elder Shadow, the throne of Kurald Imralon, different. The one
The
that
one on
we've
the
really
island
talked about a lot in Book of
floating.
the Fallen, that's different.
Okay.
There are
But it
multiple
still
Shadow
means
Thrones.
that you can probably take it out and move it somewhere else, I assume, right? And
Yeah,
even there were, like, in that case, there were people trying to prevent other people from sitting on the throne. So it could be the same case for the Shadow Throne, right?
yeah, absolutely. What were your thoughts, feelings, opinions, Dan, about this scene? Were you just completely lost?
I was kind of lost in this book, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know if it's writing style or just because in my mind, I'm like, I need to get through this to get to the next Malazan book. So I'm unconsciously sort of not giving it a fair chance. But yeah, I was a bit confused by what's going on. And also the fact that I couldn't understand some of the stuff about where we were and what time it was compared to the other books. Because I kept seeing references and I was like almost there. I'm like, okay, I know these people, I know what's happening here, but it doesn't make sense with other things. So I couldn't, it made me a bit confused.
I think everything you're struggling with is exactly why I would not recommend reading this book in the middle of the series. It just, for all those reasons. Because I think it's a really good book, but hard when you're like in the middle of the flow of Book of the Fallen and you're like ready to keep going, and it's so differ't, and it is dense, maybe not in plot, but in prose. I mean, that absolutely has an impact. There's a reason a lot of certain books are considered really complex, even when the basic events of the story may be really simple, like Moby Dick, for example.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to chapter 1? All right, we're introduced to Temper. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but Temper is a guard atop Mox Hold. He was a soldier in the Malazan Empire. He's a veteran. He served with Basim Ultor, who was the first blade of the Empire. And he was there to witness Dasim's death. We learned that. He led the bridge burners even, or he commanded them. He was not in the bridge burners, but he commanded them. He was super high up, but now he's not retired, but he is sort of gone
he's hiding out.
Yeah.
He makes that clear. Yeah, he wants to be anonymous. Presumably because of his connection to Dasim Ultor.
Wait, so Temper was someone who commanded the bridge burners?
Yes. We learned that in chapter 2.
Yeah. He was very high up. He was right there with Dasim Ultor.
It would be like he wasn't the adjunct, but he was. I don't even know if they give us what his position was, if we've learned that yet. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't like Whiskey Jack. No. Like he was not a bridge burner. But if you think again, the bridge burners were their own sort of unit within, or maybe not a unit, but their own squadron within the military. And he was high enough up that he was commanding multiple squadrons.
Makes sense. So I really love that whole setup around who Temper might be, like this man with the secret and someone who sort of escaped his old life and is worried when this whole army shows up that they might have come for him. And in the second chapter, someone who turns out to be, did she turn out to be a bridge burner or just someone who's working with the bridge burners? Corin?
She's a bridge burner.
Yeah.
Right. So but she's also working with this Sergeant Ash, who he introduces himself as.
So I like that scene where she's like, I know who you are. And I'm half expecting that Temper will be someone we have met before, but I think most probably that's not going to be the case. We'll probably just find out, like you guys said, he's someone super important and that's it. But I like the setup of this person who doesn't want to be found.
I liked his flashback a lot and learning because I love Dasim Ultor. I mean, my favorite Malazan character, period. End of sentence.
Really? That's cool.
And I will say this flashback illustrated why, like part of why at least, because I mean, we see the fall of the last holy city in the Seven Cities, Uberid, and Dasim, they get to the throne room and the claws are just torturing the lady in charge, and he just kills her, just ends her torture because of mercy. I mean, he does it clearly out of mercy. And I mean, right there in that scene right there is why I love Dasim Ultor and why I hate Laseen, because that's Laseen to a I don't know. That's Laseen torturing people and being awful.
I don't know that was like on her orders though. I mean, I also don't like Laseen, but I don't think she's like the type, like she's definitely the type to torture somebody, but not just for like shits and giggles, but because she wants information.
Yeah.
And I definitely got like a sadistic sense out of like this, that the soldiers were doing it because they had won and they wanted to humiliate the lot.
See, I think on the other hand, I think she likes to kind of go big with the claw, and not, we could talk about more when we get to Kiska, but like everybody knows about the claw. Like everybody knows about the claw and I think that's a purposeful thing. I think Laseen wants everybody in the world to know about her secret organization of mage killing mages because she wants to like rule through fear like that way, where conversely Dancer, nobody knew about the Talon. The Talon were top secret. Like that was an organization open because he was a lot quieter. If he wanted to kill somebody, he did it quietly. He didn't want to. It's just exact opposite ways of going about it.
Yeah, I don't like her.
So I could see her orders to the claw being, make it loud, make it bloody, make it terrifying. I want people to remember this.
That's fair. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, she's pretty radical in many things, right? Including the thing that I was going to talk about, the call of the nobility, and then the edict against the sorcery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder, like, if you are someone who is aspiring to take the throne and you want to be the new empress, how, I guess she really approached it from the position of power, right? And just like, didn't care about becoming unpopular as long as the people who could oppose her are gone.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very interesting take on leadership, in my opinion, right? Like, I don't think, people loved the answer in Calanvet, but at least, they were not murdering people and just like, doing all these things that basically led to all these massacres. And she's doing exactly that. And she wants to replace them. I always wondered what she was thinking in this approach.
I certainly won't defend how Laseen rules and operates, but Kellanved, I'm pretty sure it's like imperial protocol to massacre the ruling nobility after they conquer it. Like, I think we learned that in Deadhouse Gates. Like that is how they've always operated, is they go in, they take over a place, and they win the people, like the everyday person's support by killing the people in charge and essentially shoring up power. Like, I think
but that's like when they conquer other continents or other nations, right? But she's doing it to her own. Yeah, exactly. That's what
in fact, we see that twice. We see the mages, and then we see the nobles in Unta. Both times she calls her own people.
That's fair. I mean, I guess that is a different type of crime. I get your point. That's fair.
And it is interesting that I don't know if you guys remember, but the sorcery thing, Lorne was kind of a victim of that, right? And there's this whole conversation between her and Tattersail, where Tattersail was the one who was charged with going to the Malaz City and getting rid of the mages and witches and all those people. So that's a nice little connection between this book and the main series, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and then in this book, Kiska is the survivor of that. She was, and in fact, she wanted to run out and show him, hey, look, I can do magic. It's awesome. Let me join the Claw. And her aunt saved her life by saying, no, let's hide you.
Yeah, when I was first reading it, I remember being like, is Kiska going to be Lorne? Oh my God, I'm sure she is. And then that wasn't the case. But
that would be crazy.
Would be very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe before we fully jump into Kiska, Dan and Varsha, what are your thoughts on Temper?
For sure.
Dan, go first. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say of the two characters, I like Kiska more. I just thought she was more interesting character. We've got a lot of soldiers in Malazan. So I was more interested in, the perspective, even though we've seen other sort of rogues and whatever, because we've got, what's his name? What's his fucking name? Crocus, right? It's a bit similar to him. But yeah, we haven't had as many of those characters, I guess. So I was kind of interested in her storyline and where she was going to end up. And because maybe, I don't know if she's going to show up later. It seems more likely to me that she will, compared to the other guy. What's his name? Temper, right? I don't know. It just seems more likely we're going to see her more in the future when she's more grown up or something. But I could be wrong.
Varsha?
Yeah, I don't think I have a preference between the two. They're both like really interesting to follow, and they have their own mysteries and backstories that I'm really enjoying. And I'm trying to think, at least in the Malazan books that we got so far, like the Steven Erikson side of things, we don't get backstories for a while, right? Like this one, I like how it's immediately building up and giving us a sense of the character immediately. Like it's a short book and you kind of have to do that. So I think that's really effective how it's going. And it's not like in your face. It's building up with the events of the book and how they're going about their night. So in the course of the few hours that we follow, we get a sense of, I guess, Kiska's thirst to be useful, and not even just useful, just someone who wants to leave her old life and do something more interesting with it. And she thinks she has talent, and like she's desperate to be seen and understood. So I love that. And Temper's kind of the opposite. He's lived a big life, it seems like, and he wants to hide and not be found. So I like the variation in the characters, and I'm curious why he picked these two, like, because they seem so different from each other. So I'm curious to see how they might maybe converge in the end through like what happens to the two of them. But for now, I'm just really enjoying both the characters that we're reading.
Well, I think the why is exactly what you just said. They're opposites almost, you know, the young girl and the old man. And I think it, also the fact that there are really only two real POE in this book. Yeah, they're opposites, and I think that was probably Esslemont's work. He's just getting into writing with this book. It's a good way to keep them separate and make them feel separate. Because if you just have a bunch of soldiers, I think it would probably be very easy to make them all sound the same.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And I love the.
I don't know. That is a good question, though. That if we do get to interview them, I would love to ask.
Yeah. I love the vague love-hate relationship she has with her aunt Agela, and she seems to have problems with her mom. So I'm curious. I want to know more.
Yeah, since we started talking about Kiska, so the first time I read this book, I thought she was just annoying and awful. But the second time through, I get her more. Like I see what you're saying. She's kind of that Crocus archetype. She just wants to. She has big dreams, big ideas. And she's a young girl. Like she's a little naive. She's clearly naive. It does bug me, and it's not her, but like the fact that she knows so much about the claw. Like I mean, there's things that she thinks she knows that she's wrong about that I think we can, at least some of us can see. But knowing the kind of crossbows they use and stuff like that, I'm like, would you know that? Like that seems kind of a little too much. Like, I can understand you're a fan, but...
Were you already annoyed by her by this point in the story last time you read? I'm trying to think.
I think so.
What
her whole scene, like at the in chapter 1, when she was like going to the wharf or whatever and sneaking around. I don't know. She's just annoying. Like,
I think it might intensify a little bit more a little later because some of her inner monologues, they just get very repetitive throughout the book.
Okay.
Well, maybe,
Well, then maybe I'll sing a different tune next week.
I absolutely share your feelings, Shannon, or like your initial feelings the first time I read the book.
At this point,
I also
I
found
like
her
her.
annoying.
And I'm willing to
That's
forgive
good.
the naiveness because it's kind of like the first time I read Game of Thrones, like I hated Sansa, but like as I've gotten older, I'm like, she's like a little girl. Like, why am I hating on this like 10-year-old girl who's obviously being manipulated by adults around her? Like, that's, I can't hold her responsible. And Kiska's kind of the same way. I mean, she's obviously a little girl, very young. I don't think that we get a direct age, but she's very naive. Like she's, like her aunt literally had to save her life the summer before this story.
I'm kind of obsessed with the fact that she just like wants to be a claw. Like this like child is like, yeah, like this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I think that's so funny. She's not like, oh, I'm going to go, be a Marine, or like, I'm going to be a hero, She's like, no, I'm going to be an assassin. Like, that's where my skills lie. Yeah. And like, I love that for her. Clearly it's not going well for her, but, I do think it's interesting too, that there is that like element of class dynamics where like she's kind of a street kid. And so she gets brushed off by the claw, I think as much for her apparent poverty as her age. And it's just I don't know, it's an interesting dynamic there, I think.
You touched on magic and talent. I did want to ask a question. So in here, we got a reference that people can learn magic. They don't have to be just born with a connection to like a warrant. I had a question about that. I mean, it's, from what we've read so far, is that a continuity error, or is that something that we've seen could be true? Because I feel like, I don't know, like that's never been mentioned before, that somebody can just learn magic. Like everywhere we've ever seen just kind of seemed it was like innate.
I could be wrong about this. I don't think we've met anyone who we've been told has learned magic, but I feel like this was mentioned in the Book of the Fallen too, that you could learn it. You didn't have to be born with it. But I can't remember.
I think you'd have to have some sort of talent or like inclination towards it, though. I'm not sure if. Yeah, I guess you're right, Chan. It is a little bit of a contradiction. Because like if someone is completely not talented in ways of magic, and then they're like, I want to learn Russian, it doesn't seem like that should be possible, right? I don't know.
Russian. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said Russian.
Maybe it's people that have.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe it's people that have maybe a little bit of talent and they don't know it, and they just need to learn and be like, oh, okay, I can do some magic. Maybe that's, I don't know. That jumped out at me when I was reading it. I was like, that's what
we definitely know that works. Like you can have talent without study. Like we know that works, and you can use rudimentary magic or even higher magic, I guess, without study. But we haven't seen the other way. You're right. As far as I know.
No, you can use magic without study. Bottle was a good example of that. Yeah, he was somebody that just was born with like innate power that, and it's like a different kind of magic than the Warrens. He's like got a connection to animals.
Yeah, so we've seen that
something.
part, but we haven't seen the inverse. What you were saying.
No.
Someone that didn't have talent that learned how to do it.
Didn't Bottle's grandma teach him?
Maybe she taught him. Yeah, maybe she did. I don't know. I thought of it as a little bit more natural magic, but
we've definitely seen people, just like naturally do magic though.
Maybe
from last book.
Maybe my problem is that I haven't seen any reference to a magic school or like anything like that. Like, where would you go to
like
learn
Hogwarts?
Yeah, where's Hogwarts?
No, I mean actually that's a really good point. Because you would think that if anyone could learn magic, and we know how destructive magic can be, like even if you're not reaching the level of like a high mage, you would still think that there would be some sort of institution to deal with that. If it could,
I think it was mentioned. Didn't Tattersail go into some institution where they turned her into a mage, like a war mage, but she was already a talent or an adept before. So I think there's something like that was mentioned at some point.
Okay. Well, there you go. That was what I was looking for. Like,
I actually would be super interested to see the Malazan version of like Hogwarts. Like, what does that look like? I feel like it would be like very fascist. I would be really intrigued by it.
I feel like there must be some sort of military school for magic. Right? Like there has to be.
Yeah. Well, and then
given how structured it is,
other cultures should have it. I mean, Lether should have a very money-based one, and Seven Cities should have a very, I don't know, Mideast religious-based one.
I mean, yeah, it is connected to religion, though, which makes it a bit more complicated. Right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't
That's
know how
true.
it's connected to religion exactly. And it's not really religion in the sense as we understand religion. So,
Well, but I mean, that's a good point, that I think that some people maybe who don't have the talent can still pray to gods to like make magic happen, like clerics in D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I'm pretty sure that's something we've seen, and I know we see it later in Book of the Fallen.
okay.
I don't
I mean,
want to
Quick
comment
Ben
on
was a
that.
priest of
We have,
Rashan,
yeah,
right?
we have
So,
these cults that people can join, and then I guess
Yeah,
if they
shadow
have some
cults.
sort of talent, then they would, be taught how to use that sort of magic, or they are just like part of that cult, but they are not
Well,
magical.
what's her name? That's a
Lostar
shadow
Eel?
dancer.
Yeah,
Sorry,
she was
Yeah.
taught shadow dancing, wasn't she? She wasn't just like naturally talented.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she could have been. We don't. Yeah, we're not told she was. Yeah, that
but did
could be
she
something they
use
trained her in.
magic? Did she actively use magic?
Yes,
Yes.
she
Oh, yeah,
definitely
later.
had
Yeah,
that.
yeah, later. Yeah.
She does the shadow dance, which is like this special shadow assassination attack
Yeah.
technique.
So yeah. Okay, there we go.
Hmm.
So the
would
conclusion
really-
is can learn magic? Is that what what we just concluded?
I don't know.
I think the
I
conclusion is-
really think.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really do think it is like a huge. It's not a plot hole, but it's like a missed opportunity, a world hole. I don't know, that like the Malazan Empire in particular doesn't have an institution to train people, or not that has been covered.
We just don't talk
I
about
mean,
it.
maybe it does. Maybe it's
Mhm.
all off page, and just for whatever reason it hasn't come up, which kind of seems crazy because you would think it would have come up. I mean, I know Mirka mentioned that wherever Tattersail went, but like, I don't know. I just like thought it would be like that would be a bigger deal, considering how institutionalized the Malazans are. I mean, that's like what makes them a successful empire, is their incredibly adept institutions. So
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, that just seems strange.
I feel like the magic in Malazan is kind of like whatever you want it to be to fit this story you're kind of trying to tell, sort of, because it's very flexible and it's like it doesn't seem to follow any rules, or it follows like 5 or 6 different systems depending on which book you're reading.
Yes. Yeah, Malazan is probably one of the most soft magic systems I've seen this side of like Tolkien, because it's just anybody can kind of anybody can kind of do anything, which I'm fine with. I mean, believe me, I've read enough Sanderson. I'm kind of burned out of hard magic right now. So
No, I love it. I prefer soft magic, and especially Malazan kind of hits a happy spot for me where like there feels like there's some kind of systems going on, but it also seems like those systems are sort of people just imposing their own rules on and their own, realities upon the magic that is not so easily explainable. And so you do get these miracles and these strange powers and different things like that, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what Dan said. I agree with it 100%. And that's why I love it. It's like it's several different systems, like all kind of dropped into it. It's like these people do that, these people do that, and it all works. Awesome.
I do agree. I have a very tiny criticism is that when there's a soft magic like this, I do like it when there's just less magic in general. Like there's less people that do magic, because it feels more. It's like, okay, it makes sense that it's unexplained because it's not something that common that you can kind of read, but in Malazan there's quite a lot of people actually do it. So it's very rarely, but sometimes I feel kind of like this feels inconsistent with what happened before. And not like, oh, I'm missing something that might be going on in the background, but it just feels like slightly inconsistent.
I think the inconsistency is the point. Like, again, I think it comes down to like the systems that seem to exist for magic are imposed by the people, not that they're like innately real. I mean, I think the most real it gets is like the delineation, the like categorization is the Warrens, or like the Elder Warrens in particular, which are like real forces, real places. Although the bounds of those are not neat. They're not easy to discern.
Yeah. I bet we can't even like compare Warrens with Elder Warrens in halls, and like there's no exact rules for it.
Yeah. It does kind of feel like Erikson and maybe Esslemont as well are kind of like bullshitting in that regard. And I don't even mean that as an insult. It's just like, they're like, it's not a game, so they're just, they're working through it as they work through it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is kind of a game, right? It does feel a little bit sometimes kind of like, again, I was exaggerated, but when you have kids playing and I'm like, oh, I shoot you. No, I have my force field. I have my laser that goes through a force field. It's a little bit like that sometimes. So I can imagine like they built it as they were playing, and they added things and like, oh, it would be cool if my character could do this. And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then it's sort of like, okay, well, now Warrens can do this and they can do that because it's cool and it fits their characters and the storyline they were trying to tell. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I do agree with that. Yeah. What were we even talking about?
Before we got all the way out of chapter 1, I did want to bring up going back to temper. So he beats the crap of Larkin, who's messing with him, and he spills blood across the tiles. And I wanted to bring up, so he spills blood across. It says the soldier, the maiden, the king, and the ruin of the obelisk. For damn sure that meant a boatload of bad luck about to cross his bow. So I was just going to ask you guys what you made of this. It's not exactly a Deck of Dragons reading, but it does seem prophetic. I mean, the soldier and the maiden, I think, are pretty blatant by this book. I mean, Temper and Kiska, but King and the Ruin of the Obelisk, what are they getting connected to?
I thought about it, and I didn't really come up with anything specific.
I mean, King, I would think, is Shadow Throne.
Neat.
Yeah, the Emperor Kellenbed. Especially with chapter 2, because then he gets kind of wrapped into the whole cult of people that are talking about Kellenbed returning. So yeah,
I don't know why I think this, but I associate obelisk with like Laseen or something. Like there's like something related to obelisks and the Malazan Empire, but I don't remember.
Well, it's one of the tiles, or one of the cards. It's an unaligned card in the Deck of Dragons. Let me make sure this isn't. Oh yeah, so in Deadhouse Gates, it said it stood for past, present, and future. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there you go.
Was there obelisk in that scene with Edgewalker? Well, I think that there was like some sort of menhir, right? Is that the same thing?
That's the word, menhir. Yeah, the thing that the guy was stuck in.
But I mean, in my mind, it's the same as
obelisk and menhir are kind of the same thing. They are the same thing. It's two different words for the same thing. I agree. Because I had to look up what a menhir was, because I was like, what is this? Oh, it's an obelisk. It's a standing stone in ancient times or something. It's an archaeological thing, which makes sense.
Celtic why they standing stone.
It could represent shadow, or like the shadow realm.
True.
Okay.
That makes sense. Or you know what? The reason I associate with Laseen is because I associate it with like empire, like the structure of empire. I think like that's the connection we see it drawn with in Book of the Fallen. Is there's some connection between obelisk and empire, and so maybe it's related to like the connection between the Shadow Realm and the Malazan Empire, or I don't know.
In Memories of Ice, when Spindle performed the reading of the Deck of Dragons, obelisk dominated and was active for the first time in decades. I just looked that up on the wiki real quick.
So that can't be.
I don't know. That was but just the obelisk Deck of Dragons card was active for the first time in decades. Which this is a decade before, not decades plural, but
so obelisk like in real life, obelisks are monuments, often to gods. They're like, I mean, you think of like Egypt, right? They intentionally reach towards the heavens. Like that's the whole point. So it's got to have some relation to divinity worship, maybe institutional worship. So I mean, I think it probably is related to shadow in some regard, like Mirka was saying, just because that's like the kind of important warren in this book, at least so far. And it doesn't seem at all related to the Storm Riders.
No.
So speaking of Storm Riders, what do we think of that mention that they might be Jagut?
Crazy.
I guess they have ice. That makes sense. Ice and jacket.
Yeah.
Right?
They got to have some connection, but I don't know what.
But are they
maybe they came out of the Ice Warren.
I thought they were kind of like demons or like elementals or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what strikes me, is maybe they actually came out of the Jagged's Warren because they freeze everything just by their existence. Like they don't have to. So that would make me think they were adapted to survive in a very icy realm.
I'm just surprised that a random sailor would know something like this, or I guess he mentions it as a theory or, something that's maybe true, maybe not, but still, when we were reading Midnight Tides, people didn't even know that other races existed, right? So, it felt a little out of place. Like
this is
a little bit like a clumsy foreshadowing, a little bit. I don't know. Did anyone feel that way?
I don't know if it's clumsy foreshadowing as much as the authors are on different pages and had in their heads different ideas of how the races were known. Because you're absolutely right. The Jagged in particular are treated as like a mythical, you think of like the Kachan Jamal as well, or the Four Cruel Sailors. Like the elder races are like myths like that even many people don't know about. Your average everyday person doesn't seem to know about it. But here it is like your average everyday. I mean, he's a sailor, I guess, so he's traveled. But I'm with you that it is stark in comparison to the Book of the Fallen and how they're treated there.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Like, do they, like Erikson and Esslemont, when one writes a book, do they send it to the other one? Can you double check that it makes sense with everything else?
They said they didn't, actually. I think in one of the interviews they said, one of them said that they wouldn't, that they just like trust each other completely, and therefore there must be some discrepancies. But I would really want them to like check each other's things and align on things, because then, it kind of gives us all these headaches when the timelines don't work or when the sailor mentions elder races. Yeah. I don't know.
Or what if they have the same character, but they give him or her different personalities because they slightly understand in different ways?
I'm not going to get detailed, but they are actually criticized for that exact thing. Because there are characters shared between them that people say they write differently.
Yeah.
But it's not like Erikson is in charge, or like for example, how is the IP divided? Who owns the IP, for example?
I think they probably split it, and they specifically own the books that they have written.
Okay. But it was Erikson that started writing the first books, right? So it was, I just don't know how, like the history of it, I guess.
The first books were based on their game, like when they would roleplay together. When they would be on archaeological digs. So they consider it as we came up with this world together as a game to play. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe originally before the books, it was supposed to be, they wrote a screenplay and then they were trying to sell that. And then that didn't work. And so then it turned into a movie or turned into books.
They wrote at least 2 screenplays together.
Okay.
Black Dog Blues and then Gardens of the Moon.
Oh, I didn't.
I see.
Oh, I guess, no, I think I did know Gardens of the Moon.
They wrote Gardens together, but it wasn't the full book, right? Like to be clear, they wrote the screenplay for Gardens of the Moon, which only included part of what ultimately became the book that Erikson wrote. And then everything after that is all Erikson. Similarly here, I think this is all Esslemont. They have talked
But
about
I guess
how
this story existed in their role playing. Like it's not like it's like there are elements that like the entire story was played out, including the Crimson Guard, including the crippled god. Right? That was my understanding, at least.
Like I don't know if this book was played out, but they played out a lot of stuff with these characters. Yes. And in fact, I think that's kind of how the characters, at least initially, like Carl said, they share a lot more than Steven Erikson will let you believe in that introduction that I did like, but they do share a lot of characters. But I think initially, like the characters they played and the NPCs they played were more separated.
Okay. Maybe, okay, so I have a question, which might be a bit mean, but I'm still going to say it. Would Esslemont have written the books / would the books have been popular in your guys' opinions without the Malazan books written before?
I don't think so.
Know. I think it's just they do give context to the main story, but the main story is still the main story, like the thing that draws people in. Yeah, I don't think they would.
Well, a lot of their roleplay had nothing to do with the stuff we're reading. Like they roleplayed all this kind of stuff about Anamander Rake and Caladan Brood and all that. They had all these adventures with them. I guess those are maybe canon to these stories, but we don't know them. Like we haven't seen them. I think Erikson had a story to tell in Book of the Fallen. I mean,
I think there's a non-zero chance that Esslemont, if Erikson never published, he publishes something Malazan. I don't know that it would have been so many books, nor that they would have been as successful. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of impossible to tell. I mean, it is undoubtedly true that he ultimately got his publishing deal because of Erikson's success. Like that's definitely true. I don't think Erikson's ever said that. The timeline, like that clearly is what happened. I think they have the same agent even. And that's that's valid. Like it's so hard to get published that like, of course, you take those chances. Like that's often, people kind of open doors that way. So,
we're reading this in publication order and 5 books of the Malaz. We're halfway through Book of the Fallen when he writes his first or publishes his first book.
I guess how many years is that?
Just based on that, I don't think this unless he self-published this, I don't think this would exist. And I'm glad it does, to be fair.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, he wrote Return of the Crimson Guard, the second book before this, Esslemont did. And so I wonder, like, clearly that he didn't have any luck getting that published initially. And so I do wonder, like, what would he have written next? Like, maybe he wouldn't even have written Malazan books. Maybe he would have written sci-fi. Like, I don't know. I don't know what novels he has in his trunk, if any. It's kind of tough to say. I mean, it's an interesting question.
I guess I'd be kind of interested if he did an interview saying, because it's just an interesting situation that doesn't arise very often, in which there's one person that writes a main series and another person which writes secondary series. I mean, it happens with the big IPs. I don't know, Star Wars or whatever. That does happen, but with smaller IPs like this, not very common.
And I don't think. I feel like I know Erikson would disagree with you on what you just said. I don't think he would consider Book of the Fallen the main series. And because I've heard them take, fans say that, but I've heard them take up and say, no, I wrote my books. Cam wrote his books. It's all the same world.
But I mean, it clearly is a main series. It's like, I mean, they are, clearly on like very, let's do this together and it's our brainchild and all that. But
Well,
if they like
Book of
it
the
or
Dawn is
not,
the
and it
most
is a main
popular.
series.
It is
Yeah.
yes, because it was published first. It was the core, and you said, would these books exist? I mean, no. And would Carcanus exist without Malazan Book of the Dawn? No, I don't think it would. Would Paths of Ascendancy
Yeah, no
exist?
way.
No, I don't think it would. I think all of this grew out of the success of that series. Yeah. But I guess
I
if
have
you're saying, but
so
this
much to
series,
say about Path to Ascendancy, but I can't. So you guys should read it so that we can discuss it, because there are some like really interesting points to be made about specifically that in this context. Anyways, I don't want to spoil it for you.
Chapter 2? At last?
Chapter 2. At last.
Where Kiska sees a guy come out of a warren and decides to follow him for no good reason. Well, I mean, I think she's out to prove herself. She's
Dumbass.
been rejected yet again. But
Okay, you're skipping ahead. First, we have an
She's-
awesome scene. I'm telling you, like,
Oh.
I almost feel like Esslemont is at his best when he is not focusing on like the main plot, but is like telling little short stories or like little short scenes. Like his sidebars are so interesting to me. The fisherman scene in the opening is like, it is so
yes.
creepy and ominous, and his conversation with his wife. Like, this is one of the most cinematic scenes in any of these books. I feel like, just in terms of like, I feel like I could like literally watch this like in a mood. Like I can see it. The dialogue feels like something that actors would be saying, like it is just so creepy and strange. And I think it's awesome. I would love to see him write a horror book. Maybe really flex his muscles that way. That's kind of what I was saying earlier, is like, I don't know what he would have written and if he would have gotten published or not.
Yeah.
If he tried something else, because like he maybe wouldn't have felt like he had to like buy in as much to the Malazan of it all.
Yeah.
I just love that scene. Anyway, the fisherman and his
me
wife
too.
talking.
Who is it? Who is the fisherman? I totally imagine like, him sailing on his little boat, and like nothing touches him because he's in this bubble of like force field or whatever, like he's clearly someone very, very important.
And the wife says, you didn't need to go all those other times. And he says, this is different now. So bad things are about to happen. and I think when Temper thinks to himself after that little splatter of blood scene that a boat full of trouble is coming. So I think there's a lot of like interesting boat imagery, including the fisherman here. But yeah, who is this guy? Why does nothing touch him out on the ocean?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so creepy and weird. I love it. It feels like, again, like a horror novel, just like tucked in the middle of this. It's so cool. And then
so
we
he's
get to
going
Kiska.
towards the storm, right? Towards the
Yes.
the riders. Okay.
The blue and green lights. He is definitely distinctly going towards them. Yeah. So now, unless anyone has more to say there, I don't really have thought. I mean, my other thoughts would be spoilery, so got to hold off. Unless you guys have more to say. Now I think we can go to Kiska being a freaking idiot, which I love.
Oh, that part is fine. I don't really care about that. She can do what she wants. What I am interested in talking about is her interaction with Oleg. And who the hell is that guy? And speaking of horror scenes and how creepy that was creepy. The guy was dead and he starts talking to her, then transports her to another realm, and then makes some sort of proclamation and message that she has to take back. And when she does go back, surprise, it turns out the guy knew that he was being followed all along, was just leaving her alone. Sorry, Shannon. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna just follow up what you said. Yeah, I love that scene. I mean, basically, she was following a gray-clad guy who was following a dark-skinned guy to this Oleg guy. And yeah, apparently our assassin just happened to kill Oleg, I don't know, 2 seconds too late, because this convergence had started. And instead of dying like he should have, all of a sudden he's in the shadow realm and we're getting all crazy. But yeah, I think Oleg was really interesting because, well, I wish Dan was here. I mean, what did you like? What did you get out of Oleg? What they said about him? Barsha.
What they said about him? I don't.
Yeah.
Did someone
Well,
else talk
he's
about
really.
him?
Well, no, he talked about like how he was angry. What was it?
He helps.
Yeah, he talked about how he worked with Kellenbed back in,
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
he worked
He
to
stole
discover
his
the Shadow
knowledge.
Realm.
Yeah, he stole his
So
knowledge.
apparently this is where,
Sorry, go ahead.
this is where the start for the Shadow Throne started, I guess, was with Oleg. Like Kellenbed and Oleg wants that Shadow Throne. And I mean, we know how this is going to work out. It's not going to work out well for him, but he wants that Shadow Throne.
Yes, we know.
There's Dan. Maybe Dan has some thoughts on Oleg. Well, he doesn't have his headphones on yet. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone. Dan was eaten by the Worn of Shadow.
Yeah.
I
Sorry, go ahead.
I love Oleg, but the scene where he just monologues his whole history doesn't work for me. That's my one critique, is like where he just dumps everything on her. I'm like, no, like that to me felt kind of forced. Otherwise though, I love that scene. I love his whole dynamic there, the tricks he plays on her, that he's dead and then he's not, and he's like mind fucking her and she's just freaking out and he gives her like a task. I mean, it is so fun, so creepy. I love all of that stuff, honestly, more than what goes on with Temper. I really like Temper, but I'm like kind of like, oh, like criminals being criminals. Like, okay.
Yeah. No, chapter 2, I like this more. I mean, Varsha, do you have any idea who killed him? Like, why did they kill him? Given his monologue history?
Who killed him?
Like,
so
who are the people?
I'm curious about that. I thought at first when she got transported to the Shadow Realm that they might be Cotillion and Kellenbed, and like the murder was maybe part of the ascendancy ritual thing, but it turned out not to be Kellenbed. So I wonder if Cotillion, if the other guy's Cotillion still, but he's
dead. Oleg killed him. Oleg came back and killed him.
Oh, he did.
So he's just an assassin. That guy, just an assassin. But who's he working for?
I'm gonna guess Kellenbed and Dancer, but
he could be a Talon. Is what you're saying? We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps.
I mean, that would make sense if they're out, but if everybody's after the Shadow Throne.
Yeah, or other people are after the Shadow Throne too on the same night, and Kellenbed just is the one who wins. Which is interesting. I kind of got the sense from Gardens of the Moon that nobody else was really eyeing it, and Kellenbed just took it because it was there. But now we learn that there's this Jedel dude who was the former king, and he's been like trapped and chained to a menhir for a long time. And there's this Oleg guy who wants the Shadow Throne too. Maybe there'll be someone else who wants it too. And they're all fighting, and we'll learn about it later. But yeah, I think I know you're all reading this book, but I have to keep find a balance between the urge to try and recognize characters versus just read and find out. Maybe it'll be someone I know, but most probably it won't. How are you guys reading this book, or did you read it for the first time?
That's a great question.
Definitely looking for characters. Like whenever the bridge burners arrive on scene, I'm like, have we met this person yet? Ash, Corin, have we am I supposed to know these guys? So kind of like almost the panic that they're clearly bridge burners and you're not recognizing them, but should you be? I very much share that sentiment.
I just like you, Varsha, thought that Oleg and the black guy were Shadow Throne and Cotillion. Now, with hindsight, I know that Shadow Throne himself is black, but that it just seemed like that fit perfectly, and I think that's intentional. I think Esslemont knows readers are gonna have come to this from the Books of the Fallen, and intentionally introduce these two characters who seem like they must be the two you're looking for, the two you're waiting to see, right? The two are at the center of this story, but are just not on page yet. And I think that is a brilliant, fun little rug pull. And then to find out that Oleg is connected to them in this interesting way, that he is sort of this mirror reflection of Kellanved, I think is really fun. But I what Mirka said, I'm always looking for the characters, like for sure, especially in this book. I was like, where are they? I know they're here. I know they matter.
See, and that's funny you guys say that, because the first time I read this book, I wasn't looking for it at all. It wasn't until later Esslemont books, once I realized that was a thing, that I would be like, is this person? And now, yes, I do that almost obsessively now with Erikson books, Esslemont books, because even Erikson will do that with his other books, change people's names, and it's like, is this that person? But at this point, I was still too ignorant to that to know, so I was just reading it straight.
What I found interesting about Oleg is that I think what Carl said very much, I think Esslemont was counting on people coming to this book with some Malazan knowledge and having read the books, because Oleg immediately gives way too much information for if things were to be a surprise, right? Like he mentions that that Kellanved plans to lose all in order to gain everything, which is, we know that what happens with Kellanved. We know that he's going to ascend and become a god. But not knowing that, I don't know, some of those like statements there feel a little bit too on the nose for a book that is supposed to keep being surprising, I guess. I think it is slightly different in this case. We are being given the context and like the events of that night, while knowing already what's going to happen. I think it would be very interesting to like, what would a reader think if they started with this book? Like if this was the very first book someone read in the Malazan world.
When we were talking about when to read these books, I did think about that, because I've seen that in reading orders. Read this first because it's chronological first. And personally, I think that's a terrible idea. I think without knowing the stakes and knowing what's going on, like you might read this and be like, what was that? Anyway, Portia, please go.
Sorry, I was saying, I think there was a booktuber who did do that. Do you guys know, do unicorns read? Angela? I think she read Knight of Knives before she read any of the Erikson books. I'll try to find a video, so maybe that'll give us some insight into what readers who read this first.
Yeah, I'd be curious to watch that, because I can speculate, but it is tough. Like the stakes are fundamentally different, because like Mirka and Shannon both said, that context is so important to understanding kind of why things matter. I do think you would understand that like the prologue, like the shadow part of the prologue tells you that there is this shadow throne that someone is coming for. I think it would all be even more confusing and mysterious without the additional knowledge. And so that might hurt it, but I don't know. I mean, at the same time, I feel like Kellanved and Cotillion might actually seem like even more mysterious and cool in that regard, kind of like they do in the first, like in Gardens of the Moon, where they're like almost entirely off page. They're like in like 2 scenes. And so, they feel like these like forces of nature, you're like constantly looking for like what they're doing next. Like, who are they? What's their deal? What are their motivations? Which, to be fair, we're always like still, even after finishing the series, it's like, what are they doing all the time? I don't know. I don't know if Steven Erikson knows, but it's I think they would have that added gravitas, almost feel like increasingly larger than life.
Right, but I mean, imagine not knowing bridge burners, and then, like how excited we are if they show up when they show up in this book, because bridge burners are a big deal. Like, this is going to be serious. They are here. They're, maybe outlawed already. They're doing something, but like not knowing that, you're just like, okay, bridge burners, whatever. That's just a name.
That makes it definitely much cooler, that reveal. I think my counterpoint to that would be, I almost feel like you would be more invested in what's going on with Temper not having the weight of the bridge burners, because it's just about his like past coming back to haunt him. And because we know what's going on, I almost feel like we're invited to like be looking for that stuff and not be as focused on like him and what's going on. I mean, I know I personally am like just not as invested in kind of the characters around him, because I'm like, oh, these are like, this isn't like what I want out of the bridge burners. You know, it's like, it's not, it's kind of interesting to see like that some bridge burners turned into criminal assholes, but like, I don't know. I almost feel like that actually worsens the dramatic impact for me. I mean, the reveal itself is cool. I'm like, yes, bridge burners. And then like what comes of it, I'm kind of like, oh, well, this isn't really what I was looking for.
Well, we don't know
I
what they're
guess.
doing yet, do we?
No,
Right.
we
I
don't.
mean, we don't, I mean, it's not, and it's clearly not like all the bridge burners. It's, there's this faction, you know, and they have hired thugs working with them, and
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. I don't know. If Do Unicorn read if she read this first, I would be curious to watch that and kind of hear her thoughts.
Yeah, I posted the video. I think she read this before the Erikson books, but I could be remembering that
Yeah,
wrong.
I'll check it
We'll
out.
find out when I rewatch the video. But so Temper and the stuff with the bridge burners, I think that's the only thing left we haven't talked about. You know, I got a little lost towards the end of that chapter because I think there were a lot of names, and I started to get confused about who's what group. Pharaoh is already on the island, right? Like one of Temper's friends. And Coop, of course, runs the Hanged Man,
Well,
which is an excellent name for a bar. But
Coop owns the Hanged Man with his bartender / mistress. Shoot. And then and then there's 3 people that are actually living in this inn. There's Temper, and then there's Pharaoh and Teneric. And then those 2 get really weird in chapter 2 because it's very clear they have something to do with this convergence that's going on. Because
Moon. The Shadow Moon. We haven't talked about that, but it's like basically Halloween, but not Halloween, and I love it. It adds to the vibes, the creepy. You know, I feel like this would be a really good October read.
And then knowing what we know of the future, I think it's important to point out that this Hanged Man Inn is right across the street from the Dead House. So these 2 guys are living in this inn across from the Dead House as the convergence is happening, and they're watching it.
Interesting.
So, but yeah, I thought that was the stuff I thought most interesting in Temper's part of this chapter was those 2 being weird, and also the hounds that were going off and getting closer and being like right outside the door. And when you guys told me not to read chapter 3 this week, it literally killed me.
Sorry.
He's like Oleg. He's dead and he's back.
But wait, so is this the same Dead House that Fiddler and co end up at in the second book? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Hound buildup, excellent.
Yes.
I actually I thought Erikson does a good job of kind of building up to the Hound's appearances, but I think this is even better because Esslemont holds them back so much and just keeps having everyone hear them in the distance, getting closer and closer, and everyone's like freaked out. You know, the people who know what's going on are like, "Oh shit," and then the people who don't know what's going on are like, what the shit? What is this? What are these giant hounds approaching? You know, oh my God, it's so creepy.
And then in the first part of the chapter, we got Oleg, who can somehow manage to kind of confuse them, and he's keeping them away. But then we get to Temper's side, and like they get outside the door, like they're here, and it's like, oh man, like this is to me that was the best part of Temper, was just this anticipation of the hounds.
I agree, and that they killed 2 people.
Yeah,
right.
The guys that were on the door.
2 guys. That was a great scene. Another very like cinematic scene where he's like, I almost feel like it would work better actually in a movie than it does on the page, where like, you see the door and you can hear the screaming and like the hounds growling and like tearing through people. It's so fun. Very horror.
I like how Kiska initially doesn't think it's something supernatural. She's just like, whoa, that was a big dog or something. Like who owns beasts like this in Malaz? And then like she slowly realizes that that's not a normal neighbor's dog. It's something much bigger.
Yeah, I love it. I will say, rewinding slightly, Varsha, that actually everything I was saying kind of about why Temper's story, this part hasn't worked as well for me as Kiska's. I actually think the biggest thing is exactly what you said, which is there's just too many characters that are introduced too quickly, and like it's tough for me to keep track. Like even on a reread, I can like keep track of like Coop, Ash, and Temper. And then like there are some other characters being weird around them, and like most of them are bad guys, but like I couldn't really tell you a lot of the differences. And then there's the one other bridge burner lady that I would remember her name if I saw it. Corin. Yeah. But the hound stuff is a highlight.
Oh yeah.
I definitely agree. And I do like the like suspense of this like hostage situation.
I did think since you mentioned Corin, just real fast, I did like Temper's very blatant crush on Corin when he's just like in chapter 1 and he's like, maybe she's coming by tonight. I wonder if she's coming by. Maybe I'll see her. I haven't seen her in a couple months.
That's yes.
And then when he finally gets attention, it's like, yeah, I know who you are, and you're dead meat if you don't listen to me.
Yep.
Yeah, Mirka, you were saying?
I was going to bring up that mysterious fog that is mentioned in this scene as well, coming from the dark stairwell down into cold cellars no one ever enters. Yeah, never mind the storm outside, but it was gathering right here around them now. It's just very casually mentioned, but I thought it deserved attention.
Great shout out. That's yes. The creepy little, just the building suspense. And again, I think the Shadow Moon is such a great conceit for the convergence. Usually when we have, at least in the Books of the Fallen, like when we have a convergence, it's often just like militaries moving and then elder gods and entities like kind of converge around this like military conflict. Obviously, it's slightly different in Midnight Tides because we actually have the whatever it's called when the Emperor is supposed to rise in the Theris, and like I thought that's fun. But the Shadow Moon to me is like I love this sort of like fantasy, like taking like it feels like the fairy tale elements of it. Like there's this weird natural phenomenon going on, and everything is kind of whirling around that. That's just something I can never get enough of. I love that, and I think Esslemont does a great job of establishing that and like building it out and creating the tension from that.
If you think about it, we very much praised Erikson for like breaking the tropes and the cliches of the genre, and now we're praising Esslemont for keeping them. Like you have this one mysterious knight, you have this old soldier, an old timer who's clearly more than he seems, a naive girl who's kind of like, I don't know, running around. I feel like it's a lot of classical themes all mixed together, and we don't mind. We like it, which, it's fine. It's just very different.
I mean, the temper of it all, I feel like also is very much an Erikson thing. Like Erikson loves a grizzled veteran. That's Fiddler, that's Whiskey. I mean, that's like all the bridge burners, right? Some of the bridge burners have like more distinct stuff going on, but like I think that specifically to me feels just very Malazan in general. Kiska, though, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, she's an assassin, so I guess that's slightly weird, but like also it's not in modern fantasy. Like there are so many books about young people becoming assassins that it's like sort of whatever,
Yeah,
but I still find it fun. Like, I think the thing I like is that she's treated like an idiot for it. Like usually when teenagers are becoming assassins, it's like really cool. And her, it's like, no, you're kind of dumb. Like, what are you doing here? You're treated like a joke. It's kind of a joke. And I like that. I don't know if that's like a subversion per se, but it's like a neat little twist on that. I do also, I agree with you, America, that I almost feel like Esslemont plays things a little more straight than Erikson does. He doesn't quite like bend the rules, so to speak, as much. And
well, I think Erikson really likes to subvert tropes a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works. Sometimes I don't think it really works. But but that is definitely, I think, something across the board. He likes to subvert tropes. And I, I'd never picked up on it before, America. Thanks for pointing that out. Like, I do think Esslemont does lean into tropes a lot more.
It's kind of interesting too, just because like Erikson, the way, if you hear him talk about it, their campaigns, and like he speaks of the Malazan world and the Malazan campaigns they played as if they both were like turning all the tropes on their heads at every opportunity, both of them, right? But yeah, it doesn't, like on the page, it doesn't come across that way. Like maybe in little details with Esslemont, but even thinking of like the other books of his I've read, I don't get a big like it's not as...
Yeah, they like the absurdity and the humor that Erikson so gladly uses, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, like the very intentional subversion of like, you think this one thing is going to happen, and actually it's something completely different and maybe even anticlimactic, which, I don't think is always perfectly effective, but often is.
Yeah, I mean, tropes are tropes for a reason. People usually like them. So that's why Erikson, I think, he's risky when he goes and he tries to twist things, because sometimes it's like, that's not what I wanted. Like, I don't like it, because it's just not. But at the same time, sometimes it really works, and it's like, man, that's great. So, but yeah, that's really risky. I don't know. Like, I think I'm looking forward to reading more Esslemont books with you guys, and looking for that, seeing how this goes.
Yep. Absolutely. Paths to Ascendancy, I'll say, to me feels like very straightforward. And at least the first book. Like, it doesn't feel like any of the subversion that he was talking about. Like, that was what was coming to mind, even more than this book. Like, I shouldn't even be talking about it because I can't talk detail. But like,
we'll get there.
I really want to talk about it. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes, I'm with you. I mean, I don't know the later books. Anyway, that's another conversation. Maybe I'll message you on the page chewing, because I am curious what you have to say. All right, what else do we have?
Quotes?
That's like it, isn't it?
Yeah. Quotes. I forgot my book up there as always, but I really like the descriptions of the storms, especially when the fishermen went out. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, while you're looking, earlier you mentioned how kind of Arthurian the whole Shadow Throne thing was back in the prologue, and I really did like when Edgewalker he said something with he was talking about who's the convergence, and there's something out there. He said something with a heart of ice and something like a blurry reflection are after the throne. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I mean, the heart of ice, the blurry reflection, I assume the blurry reflection's Kellenbed. And then the heart of ice would be Dancer. But I just thought that was really
I was wondering if
good
that's
descriptions of them.
Yes.
And then my only other quote.
I love how the Shadow prologue ends. Just the very last line, I think, is a wonderful kind of denouement isn't the right word, but the lead out of that into the rest of the book. But this time, what intrigued him most, him being Edgewalker, was something so rare he'd almost failed to recognize it: the coiled potential for change, which I think is not just like kind of actually relatively straightforward. Like, it's not like written really fancily, but I think it is a very effective sentence. The use of ellipses between failed to recognize it and the coiled potential for change, I think is excellent. But beyond that, I think it's also really meaningful knowing the context of like who Kellenved and Cotillion are and how they operate, and kind of like they are these symbols of like change. You know, sometimes it's chaotic, sometimes it's orderly, but they're like always changing the status quo. And again, it's not always moral. It's not always like, oh, this is a good thing, but they are that element to me. Like I associate them fundamentally with change, with progress. And so I thought that was wonderful.
Interesting. I found mine. Hail lashed white-capped waves all around, yet none touched the fisherman's grey hair as it tossed in the wind. Deep ocean surge, tall as any vessel, bore down on him, ice-swept, frost and spume-topped, but they rolled under his bow as gently as a meadow slope while he crooned to the wind.
Creepy.
That's very creepy.
It's really good.
From chapter 1, I liked this description of Malaz City. It said, once home port to a piratical navy, then a thalassocracy, then an empire. The city now seemed crowded more by ghosts than people.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up that ocracy word, and by the way, and I could not find a description for it, so I don't know what it means.
Wait, which word?
Thalassocracy.
Thalassocracy. Thalassoc.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of government that is. Couldn't find it.
A maritime empire, apparently, according to Wikipedia.
Okay.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, so the Malazan Empire started out as the last.
There was you said they were pirates, and then they were. Yeah.
Well, I think that means the time when Mok was the ruler, right?
Okay. Well, that would probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, because he was the pirate, and then he probably ruled the seas around them.
That makes sense.
That's making me think of that TV show. What is it called? Is it about pirates? I can't remember.
I don't know. I've been watching too many Viking shows. I don't know pirate shows.
Anything else before we wrap up?
I have one that made me chuckle, and it's not cool anyway. But here goes. It's from Temper. A 7-city skirmisher had ruined the best hauberk he'd ever owned, as well as come damn close to killing him. I just thought it was really funny that he first mentioned that it destroyed his hauberk, and only then that it almost killed him, as in that order was what he thought was important.
He's seen some stuff.
He's seen some stuff.
Okay. Is that all?
I think so.
Okay. Then thank you so much for listening. Once again, if you'd like to read along with us, we do post a lot of updates on the Patreon forum and the reading schedule and so on. Please check that out. We will be reading Night of Knives for 2 more weeks before we go back to the Malazan Book of the Fallen with the Bone Hunters. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.